All right, welcome to episode number 160 of Agency Journey. This week, as you can tell from the video, if you're watching the video, if you're not listening to the podcast audio version, we've got Remington Begg from Impulse Creative back on the podcast. How you doing today,
What?
Remington?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Well, so we talked 2.5 years ago,
Yeah.
and you guys, so that's the beginning of 2016, I guess. I always forget to
hmm
timestamp things, not realizing everybody
Yep.
listens the moment that this comes out. I don't know what's wrong with some people.
Right.
Um,
Come on, people.
But we talked a lot about your story and then Impulse and building the team and some of the things that you had. So I thought what we could do is maybe we go in medias res and we go
Yeah.
kind of start with where you guys are today. Hear a little bit of what you're all about because you've pivoted the business a little. I mean, the agency is still kind of the agency, but you're offering different services than where you were at
Yep.
2.5 years ago. So maybe we start with what you're doing today and kind of state of the
Sure.
agency and go
Yeah,
back to
absolutely.
how some things have changed.
Yeah. So actually this podcast, that podcast episode was a pretty defining moment. Not just because it was on your podcast, but because of it was one of those things that I couldn't ignore about like talking about that I had it all figured out. So I'll get back to that in a little bit. But today we've got 14 people working in Impulse Creative. I used to look at that as a notch in a belt, and it's not to me anymore. So that's a big difference. But as we look at the agency, we made a pretty dramatic shift over the past probably 18 months that we decided that we really needed to focus and differentiate. Everyone else talks about differentiation, like, oh, let's go down a certain industry path or something like that. And what we wanted to do was come across more platform agnostic and really talk about results rather than being just dedicated to one tool. And at the same time, we learned a lot of lessons over the years previous. So now today, Impulse is, we center around this compass. And the idea of the compass is that you need design, development, marketing, and sales in order to really define your brand, and they all have to be speaking the same language. And so we've got experts in each one of those areas and facets that can drive the results needed to help people grow their companies. And so we look at brand being the cornerstone of a company's growth, and so we've really defined our messaging a lot better. We've learned a lot of lessons in the past, and I had a great opportunity to press the reset button. So we can get more into that later.
So you said design, development, marketing, and sales. Those are the four:
Yep. The
east,
four
west, north,
pillars.
south.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. So,
Exactly.
and you've got people to service there, but that's a model that isn't familiar to most companies and
Right.
clients. So how does that during the sales process, or they come to you for help? How much are you leaning on that and explaining that? Are they buying in, or do they just see that as this is what the agency thinks is important, and if they get us the right design and development, that works for us?
Yeah. So I think it's a mix. The good news is I'm not in the sales process as much anymore, which means that things actually move faster. But the big thing that has, that's really worked is there's more and more opportunities for interruption, in the consumer company relationship. And at the same time, all these different messages that companies put out. And as companies are putting out all these different messages, their consistency is really what defines success. And that's brand. And so when we're talking about design, what it looks like, development, what it feels like, content, how we speak about it, the where we're targeting, like all that stuff has to be on the same rails. Otherwise, you might as well be 14 different companies. And so by refining that message, Dharmesh talked about it last year at Inbound about like aligning all the vectors, and he was talking about people, but really by utilizing an agency or at least having the standards that you need as a company,
Mm-hmm.
we force that upon our clients in a very friendly way, but it aligns all the vectors in their messaging visually, contextually, and of course the user experience too. And so they don't usually come for that, but after they've talked to us a little bit, they're like, holy crap, yeah, I do have completely different header photos, or
Right.
I don't have the same bio picture anywhere. It's a very precise thing. So a lot of times you get that oh shit moment, and it's like, yes, we got it.
So I mean, my assumption is pretty much everybody would lump design and development under marketing.
Sure.
So what's kind of unique about that and pulling that out and saying this needs to be consistent across the entire, at least front half of the customer experience and presumably across the entire customer experience, is you're not just saying like the cliche of, hey, marketing and sales need to come together and now you've got a growth team or you've got a revenue team or whatever. It's not just that you've got these two things, but you're pulling in some other pieces and saying like all these need to be working in conjunction, which is a cool, it's a different approach than what, and I've seen other people who try and pull marketing and sales together do. And I think that might provide some extra leverage to you guys.
Yeah. And then on the other side, and we'll get into the website redesign and the whole process about restructuring our message. One of the things, everyone talks, especially this year at Inbound, it was all about the customer, right? And everyone talks about customer-centric marketing. They have for years, but no one actually does it or pays attention to the data. And so, we realized that people came in and talked to us about website design and didn't really talk to us about inbound marketing. We force fed them inbound marketing is what they needed because we believe what we believe. And it's not that inbound marketing is not what they need, but in some cases they may need some outbound tactic and inbound flavor, if you will. So we focused and made a major shift where we broke up all the little pieces of what's delivered in an inbound strategy. And now we have, I think we're up to almost 60 different service offerings that are on our website. And so everyone's like, holy crap, how do you keep track of all of that? And it's like, you do that every day. Like, you're doing social, you're doing SEO. Well, you should be. You're doing all of these things. We broke it up so that people understood all the different pieces and how we pick and choose strategies in order to help people grow.
So let me ask this, because you talked about like getting focused and niching down.
Yeah.
But you're offering different services. So the horizontal specialization maybe is a piece, but maybe isn't. We can get into what services you have, but across 60, most people would say it's not. You're not necessarily, if you're platform agnostic and you've got 60 different services, maybe you're not horizontally specialized.
Sure.
Depending on it's all. I feel like it probably gets over polarized, where it's like either you're specialized and you do one thing, or you're not specialized and you do more than one thing. It's like, well, there's some scale here between like totally whatever happens and completely making it up on the fly, which is we offer every single service under the sun, and then all the way down to
right.
But then, so are you specializing? Are you working in verticals?
So we work really well with people that want intentional growth. And what I mean by intentional growth is they have an actual goal that they want to accomplish. They want to know how they should get there and over a certain time. And I know that, especially with this wave of growth agencies that are going to be coming now, like a lot of them kind of pitch that, but you can't throw someone into an inbound retainer that's 4 blogs a month and 5 social posts and, $4,700 of pay-per-click in order to drive that result. It has to be customized, but yet people still have like 2 packages or 3 packages, on their site. So I like to think of us more as a T-shaped agency. So we're really, really focused on making sure that brand is consistent. And then we branch off and make sure the communication is consistent across all of these different facets, to a point where that consistency really accelerates growth. And so what we're doing right now is one of the other lessons is our agency was kind of the redheaded stepchild from a marketing point of view. We've really put in like, what's the best retainer that we want to sell? Like, how much effort and time would we want someone to pay us for? And essentially what we're doing is we're using our own website this year and our own marketing initiatives this year to show someone what's possible. And so that's the fun part of the case study as we're going forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, there's a lot we could dive into there, because we talk a lot about specialization and niching and how you figure that out. And the T-shaped approach is something different. So I'm glad that you shared that. Yeah. But let's go back in time here. You said the podcast we did, or that time, and having that conversation was kind of a defining moment for you. What is that? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So as agencies, I've seen a lot of different graphics. I think it's entrepreneurship in general, but like you have like, I'm doing awesome, I suck. I'm doing awesome, I suck. And like, or it's like this spaghetti plot of success rather than that straight line that everyone feels like it. We actually, on our podcast, Wayfinding Growth yesterday, we were talking about how, it's like, you're a one night wonder. Like you figured this all out in one night because someone just discovered you. But at the same time, we've owned the agency. This is going on 11 years now.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people are like, holy crap, 11 years. And, that usually follows a question of, how did you get where you are today? And I'm like, well, it took 11 years and they're a year and a half in and they're like, oh, you've got it all figured out. Right. The assumption is, oh, I've got 9 more years, so there's burnout and all that. But one of the things, the defining moment for me is we were on a really great growth trajectory, like painful looking back, but on a really great growth trajectory a couple of years ago. We got some really great clients that came on. We had larger retainers. We had staff that seemed well motivated in the areas that we wanted them to be. And that podcast was how to keep and retain employees, right? And I was like, I got this all figured out. Now, I got a sobering realization that between when we recorded that episode and when it was actually posted, that was not the case. But we still went through and published it, and everything that I said in there was true. Like there's nothing wrong there. But the big thing that I came to realize, and it was in every presentation I've done since when I'm talking to other agencies, is like, this is how we're doing it. And then an asterisk, like, we're still testing this too, right? Because like there's a lot of people, like business, especially nowadays, especially in the agency area, changes so quickly. Like we're talking about conversational marketing and chatbots this year. And 2 years ago, if I had told you that chatbots would be something you'd think about, you'd be like, whatever, like, death to the humans. Like that's not going to happen. And now it's driving serious results for people. So as things are developing and changing that quickly, I look back at my business 2 years ago and it's like a completely different organization. And so when we think about the, caring about your employees and measuring retention and trying to understand how to grow, 300% year over year growth is not something that you want to advertise, because that's like, that rocket that's going up and then suddenly it's going to run out of gas. And so essentially that's what happened to us. We had a little bit of a poaching issue. We had people that decided to jump on ship with other agencies. Other agencies were targeting some of our people because we're really good at training people. And so that put me into a really dark time personally for about six or 8 months, because I got bitter. I was super pissed. We lost a bunch of clients. And disclosure there, I'm actually glad looking back that we lost those clients, because there's no way we could have serviced them the way that they needed to be serviced by losing. It was almost, I think it was 70% of our employees all left in between when we recorded that podcast and when it actually published. Wow. So, that being on the internet means it's true. And it's one of those things. I think I've listened to that single episode probably 3 or 4 times, since. And it's like, remember how confident you were with that? Like, right. Where were you wrong and where did things go? So that was a great tool for me. But as we, move forward today, a lot of the things that I've realized is I was going for what everyone else told me my management structure needed to be within the organization. And so, I'd listen to a couple other agencies, the exact same scenario that I realized that people listening to that were probably like, oh, Remington's made it, and all these issues. And I realized that, just because the Kunos and the Impacts and the whatever the other agency names are of the world are doing it a certain way doesn't mean that that's going to be success for me. And so that was a huge lesson personally. But the other side was, like, from a management structure perspective, we went very horizontal in our management structure. So it's my wife and myself, and I would rather focus on building people who are accountable for their own actions across the board, and then moving to a quasi pod structure, like more teams around things, and then having shared accountability, right? So we have shared accountability for success, we have shared accountability for failure, but it's the idea that, there isn't someone at a management level who can taint or poison the well if you don't know what's going on. And so I don't spend as much time with each person as, as I had in the past, because there was someone else managing them. But now the ability and how we've structured it is like I go for every other week, I go for a walk with every single person, virtually or in-house. And when I say virtually, like walking around the neighborhood on Zoom on my phone, or actually in real life. Right now it's super hot outside, so we try to do those in the morning. But but really focusing on the relationship side of the employment transaction, not just the work side. And that's something that was completely missing out of last year's or 2 years ago's podcast, is I was talking about how to keep them. And it was really just tactics where, the other side of it is the human side. You want to know what's going on in their life, because the outside influences in their life are going to affect the inside influences in the agency.
100%. Do you think in that story, there's so much in that story that I think it's helpful to hear and just to understand. Listen, nobody actually has all their stuff together.
No.
We're all just figuring it out. And the reward, I had this conversation a bunch with people at Inbound a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
The reward for getting this right in business or in anything else is more complexity. Like, things don't get easier. It's just that the scale and the size of the problems change.
The snowball just increases. Yeah.
Right. So, yes, business is a momentum game, and there are big parts of that are very positive, where you get more clients, you make those clients happy, you get more referrals than if you only make one client happy. But the flip side is that when things don't go well, and things are not always going to go well, and you need to build in time and margin for the things that don't go well, that the snowball works in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, after having gone through that, you kind of hear both sides of it. There's some people who believe like you build really strong relationships with people, you train them super well, and you have a career path, and they'll be loyal and stick with your organization. There's other people who believe this is just the way that the market is. Like, things change so quickly in the space. People, not necessarily at the core, but on the surface, change very quickly now because they're exposed to so many more influences than maybe they were at times in the past, because of the technology that we have. And you just need to be prepared for someone to jump at any time and understand that you will have exceptions, but the average life cycle of a team member, is somewhere between 2 and 5 years. And depending, if you're in the fast food industry, that's 7 months. And if you're in a different industry, maybe that's 10 years, but it's not what it was, where regardless, people were sticking with you for a long period of time. Do you lean one way or the other in that? Like, has your mindset on that changed after having gone through this?
So I would say half of the people that left because of the poaching. The other half that left because of the perception of where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah. And I got bitter, right? So that comes down from the top. And actually Ryan on my team, who's been with me the longest now, he was here during a lot of that. He actually came up to me. Candor is one of our core values. And he came up to me and was like, "Hey man, like, you just get it together." Right. And it's true, because, like, we have a lot of nautical references at Impulse, and the captain of the ship needs to make sure that everyone needs to know the captain knows where he's going. And so that's a personal thing. But from a company perspective, you got to have those goals too. And I think, I think that a lot of that is because there's a disconnection between management or the boss or the agency personnel that causes people to not feel appreciated or not know that they matter. And so I think if you maintain that helps. And for asterisks, we're still testing this, right? But the big thing there is that there's this opportunity to learn more. And I actually saw a tweet by Mike Volpe about it was, he's a CEO now instead of a CMO, and like someone tweeted him was like, or emailed him, and he was like, "Are you an asshole now?" Right. So there's this context that owners are assholes, and I bring it back and talk to my team quite a bit about it, and I've had conversations. So there's 14 people in my organization, so that's 13 people other than me, and if I want to talk to every single person each day about an issue, they've got 8 hours or more of time to hang out and be thinking about things, but I don't have an hour that I could spend with each person because of how much time is available in the day. So I've changed how I operate day to day by coming in at like 4:30 in the morning to get my stuff done before 9 so that I can serve the rest of the team during the day. But on the flip side of that, they need the CEO, like the question about what the CEO does, or the question about, we ask for transparency in everyone's job, but the CEOs and management don't typically share what's going on in their lives.
Right.
Their lives or their business, right? So like if they're having issues, or if they're not effective communicators, that causes as much of an issue as anyone else. So to answer your question, yes, I think that there's an issue with people jumping from job to job, but I think that we also have a generation of people that more so now than ever, one, see that the grass may be greener on the other side because of social media and other connections. And then two, the opportunities are endless. Like it used to be your local radius was where you could find a job. And now we've got half of our team is remote. So, it's just one of those things that I think we have to pivot and adjust to, but it really comes down to understanding there's human connection.
Right. Both of those are very important. And the other thing you see more today, I wasn't around 20 years ago in the workplace, but from talking to people, the thing that I see as being very different, and we've had this happen to us in a short 7-year, 8-year journey or whatever, but if you build those strong relationships, there will be cases where people leave who maybe were the right people, but wanted another opportunity, an opportunity for people to return. Like there should still be, I think the reason it's just, are you transactional or are you looking to be a transformational leader? And if you're transactional, the odds of those people coming back, like the way that you're going to respond to that. And there's obviously the human nature of, you feel like as the entrepreneur, you always feel like you're the one who gets left behind. You're never the one who gets to leave because it's your ship. You're always the one that gets left behind. And almost nobody's prepared for that when they get into entrepreneurship.
Right. Well, and that's what we wear on our backs. I mean, that's why we do it. Right. Yep. But we forget that once things get crazy busy. I love that term, transformational leadership. So that was probably in the past 12 months, that's been a really huge thing for me. Is I went to, it was another agency mastermind group, and it was a lot of like, the Simon Sinek, Power of Why, but forget your company. Right. So it's like, talk about your why, but I don't want you to mention your company. It was something that was really powerful. And one of the big things was, I want to make an impact with every interaction that I have with my team. And what I want is to be the defining moment in the success of everyone in the organization. That is a huge shift from where I was, 3 years ago, because it was transactional. It was, if I treat everyone great and I do insurance and I do this and I do that, how everything all ties in, it works really well. And that pivot really changes. So allowing someone to come back to the agency is 100% a thing that, it's safe, but you have to be an effective communicator. Because if you're like, hey, I'm leaving in 2 weeks, I tell the entire team 2-week notice is a minimum. Right. 2-week notice does not enable the agency for success. Like if you're one, you have to talk about the fact that you're thinking about leaving, and two, you have to be open and not fear your job to have that conversation. And in a lot of cases, I've had those conversations with a couple team members where I look back in the history and I'm like, oh yeah, they would have been gone if I treated it the same way that I did before. So knock on wood, hashtag learning all the time. Right. Don't take anything I say with face value and just run with it, but start thinking about how it can impact your business.
For sure. So let's switch gears here a little bit. We'll go all the way from kind of high level management stuff and story to technical, because this has come up a couple different times, and we're going through it right now as we're rebranding from Do Inbound to ZenPilot. So you guys didn't rebrand, but you did switch URLs. When was this? Was this the beginning of 2017?
What are we in right now? We're 2018. So we did it December 20th.
With 20.
Yeah, we did it December of 2017. Okay. Like, so December 20th. Because I wanted it to, over 2-week period before we got started with the new year, I wanted to make sure we had all of our stuff figured out.
So I should have looked this up. It was Choose Impulse before, right?
Correct.
And now it's Impulse
Now it's
Creative.
Impulse Creative.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've been fighting for the domain since we named the company in 2012. It was available. I did some searches on a couple different websites. Someone snagged it out from under me within like 30 minutes.
Wow.
And so when it started out as a $15 domain, it ended up being almost a $3,000 domain.
Yep.
And so as we're building up the company and we're seeing some really great results, we were like, this is an investment we need. So I've owned the domain for 2.5 years. And I have been scared to do anything with it other than hook up emails because I didn't want to screw up the momentum we had. And so, what we're talking about right now is switching your domain. I did a whole heck of a lot of research, and I'm a data nerd, so I'm trying to understand like use cases. And there's not a lot of really good information out there around what it takes to choose a domain, and Google doesn't really share too much. But some of the key takeaways that I did from my research and through looking, and again, my research that I looked at, so do your own due diligence. But when I did it's not so much domain authority as it is website authority. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about that, you've got to make sure, just like call forwarding with phones, like if you change from one phone number to another, we want to make sure that people who call the original number get forwarded to the next one. That's probably one of the biggest issues that I had uncovered and I had known about, is making sure you have 301 redirects and you update all of your links. And then we went into the website redesign almost as if it was a rebrand. And so what I mean by that is the structure of our pages and the structure, like the things we talked about, like HubSpot was probably 80% of the language that we had on there. And it was a lot of how HubSpot talks about things, inbound marketing, for instance. And like, it was just all inbound. And I think we had our core site, not including blogs, was probably 15 pages, right? So the blogs and stuff were a major thing. And it was also on a subdomain. So we had blog.chooseimpulse.com.
Yep.
And then we had chooseimpulse.com, which was the main site. And so those core pages that we had, were a little bit more scattered. We were like, oh, we need this page. We have to build this page. And like the keyword strategy around that page was very much singular. The title tags, the content really kind of sucked. And so what we did is when I came to the team, I was like, we need a brand new website. We looked at the site and I said, I don't want any existing content on this website at all. Like the logo is the only thing that's allowed to come across. And so we completely rethought the entire site. We looked at, we rebuilt the sitemap from the ground up. And essentially what we did is Screaming Frog is an amazing tool if you're transitioning between websites. And any clients that we come in contact with, we do a full inventory of every single page in there that is on the internet publicly. And so spreadsheets become your friend because you want to make sure that every old page now has a new destination, or especially if you're switching URLs, is going to a new place. And also gives you an opportunity to audit every single one of those pages. So including blogs, we had 729 pages that we had to make sure that the IP or the authority transitioned over to. And of those pages, we realized that there were some pages we didn't want. And then, of course, with the services, we added a whole heck of a lot more. And so we did a lot of research on the keywords, obviously making sure that they are up to date. And for the record, like I found notes back when we built out the site, and I think inbound marketing was searched 1,200 times a month. Wow. Right. And now it's ridiculous. So when you're thinking about like the shoe cobbler shoes scenario there, like we built this website based off of what we knew of inbound marketing way back when. And the only thing we had going for us was time. So that one horrified me because we've got all of this time and Google's looking at this domain and we're like, what is going to happen? And then on the flip side, we're switching over to this new domain. And so I basically made a checklist. It was making sure that every single page carries over the keywords that we were ranking for with authority.
Yep.
Making sure that those pages that we were eliminating were driving to areas, not just pages, but areas on the pages that had that same authority. So for instance, using anchor tags and and adding those into your redirects. So if we're talking about inbound marketing, for instance, but inbound marketing is halfway down on a page, like literally telling Google where on the page that information is, so that Google doesn't have to do as much info. And then we went through and set up all those redirects. We wrote all the content based on the criteria. And the criteria was essentially, these are the 13 or 14 keywords that we are holding some serious rank for that are driving leads and driving traffic. These are like our holy grail. And so by paying attention to the stats on those and like making sure that everything was working, we went through, and there was probably another 100 or so keywords that we were monitoring. And I'm not talking about like using the HubSpot keyword tool, which you can't use anymore anyways. Right. I'm talking about literally doing a search and then having a VPN and doing another search of each of the keywords and actually measuring yourself how far down on searches you are. And then we also did some keyword analysis around those keywords in regards to today, how much is it searched, and how long is the average page content. And so the average page content was probably one of the defining reasons why this worked out really well, because we're telling Google that we're moving, and we want to tell Google we're moving to something better. Right. And so if they look at a page that is, 200 words when the average is now 700, and then we move them to a 200 word page, they're like, this isn't better. Right. And that's where I believe you could start to lose some authority. So what we did is we made sure that we were 1.5 times whatever the average was for all of our content, which adds a lot of extra time and effort. And along with that, we made sure that every single one of those pages had a redirect and that every internal link on the site was updated. And that's the kicker here. So if you change your domain, but yet all of the links or a majority of the links that are in your site link to your old domain, you're diluting that keyword authority. And what you're doing is you're telling Google, I just switched my domain, but I'm not actually going to make anything better on my site. Right. So what we did is we went through, literally find and replace. Screaming Frog is really great for indexing and then identifying anything that has the old domain. Right. And we had to go through 700 blogs and update links manually in every single one of those blogs to the new URLs after we did the redirects. To the user would never have known the difference because it would have redirected. But Google is going to go, oh, like everything is updated. Like this is fantastic. And so we have seen a 100% increase in traffic since we did the move. We moved the blog from a subdomain to a subfolder, so it's /blog now. Yep. And in general, we're trending up between 15 and 20% month over month on organic traffic. So we actually have zero paid traffic right now. That's my initiative, is to try and get to the entire rest of the year without having to pay for a single visit. So just check your redirects. Make sure that you update all of the links so that they're pointing to the right direction, and make sure that you're mindful of the keywords you are ranking for, and you make sure that authority is there with the new destinations.
Right. Wow. You broke it down kind of like you've thought about this before. So
because I was scared. Right. I was scared. Everyone's like, why are you white-faced when we flip the switch? I was like, because I think this will work.
Right. Yeah. Not sure. That's one of the moments in life where you're like, one of the few moments where you regret all the work that went into blogging, when you have to go through 700 blog posts and manually change up all these links. That's funny. Well, good. Well, I appreciate you breaking that down. I know you guys have a case study on it as well, so we'll make sure we link up that in the show notes. Cool. So before I let you go here, you guys are putting out a lot of content right now.
Yes.
So let's just talk quickly about the resources that are out there so people know what's available. You mentioned the podcast, Wayfinding Growth.
Yep, Wayfinding Growth. So you can go to wayfindinggrowth.com. That'll forward you through to the section on our website that has the podcast. We've got inbound.film we just launched this past week, which is video resources. George B. Thomas is now on my team. He's been on my team for about 6 months now. And so he's heading up his passion project, essentially, that he wants to build out this like crazy video resource about anything you can do about video with business. And then we also have Sprocket Talk, which is anything HubSpot related. Our objective is to beat HubSpot out with announcements via video and telling you about them. George is doing quite well with that, and it's working so well that we're actually bringing the rest of the team into some of these. So you'll see a bunch of new faces, but you can check that out by going to sprockettalk.com. And then, Impulse is impulsecreative.com. So we've got our blog, and I do a daily conversational marketing tutorial on Drift. And every once in a while, I come in on Sprocket Talk, and we'll do one with HubSpot as the tool starts to mature. So we are putting out 85 videos a month right now, and about 23 articles. Oh, and that's the other thing with the redesign. Every single page on our blog on our website has a video. So like every page has a video on it that talks about the services in that video or in that page.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, 279 videos now are live on our site.
That's awesome. So you're listening, you're watching, be inspired, not overwhelmed by that. That sounds like an awful lot of content to put out.
Sure. Oh, and the people doing it, there's 4 people handling that content in addition to their normal jobs. Yep. So no one is strictly dedicated to it. It's just a little bit of a discipline. And the videos, for the record, only take about 14 and a half minutes for us to produce and publish.
So that's another podcast episode for us to
pull
in you or George at some point and just walk through the workflow. That'd be awesome. But
sure.
Well, great. Well, I appreciate you coming on, sharing. If you didn't catch it, if you completely zoned out during our SEO session there, impulsecreative.com is the URL to go find Impulse and learn more about Remington. Anywhere else you'd suggest for people to go track you down?
So please don't email me. Email's the bane of my existence. On Messenger at Remington Begg, on Twitter at Remington Begg. You can tweet me, message me, direct message me. If you have any questions about where you're at, what's going on, or you just need another